a monster.
I'm your number one fan.
Now clear your minds. Notice what scares you. It has from the very beginning.
You know, it's Halloween. I guess everyone's entitled to one good scare, huh?
It's been informed that zombies have entered the building. They're at the door. They're coming in.
Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the Midnight Monster Corner podcast. I'm your host, as always, Corey, and alongside me is my good pal, Tony. What's going on, Tony?
What's up, brother? How you doing?
Doing good, man. Doing good. How about you? I'm doing great?
Man. Yeah, I can't complain. Doing fantastic.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. So I noticed I've been following you actually on Letterboxd, and you got quite the collection going on there. You've been watching a lot of films lately.
Yeah, I started off pretty hot and heavy and kind of slowed down a little bit lately. But yeah, I wanted to get a lot of 2020 watches in. So a lot of stuff I missed throughout the year. Kind of wanted to re-up and start kind of picking through those a little bit more. Kind of not really just to do my own like top 2020 list or anything like that, but just to actually get caught up on them, see what I missed, see what the good ones were. But yeah, I've been knocking that out lately. Been trying to just log all the horror movies I've been watching, just not, movies in general. Like I've seen a couple of non-horror stuff, but I don't really want to log those. I want to see how much at the end of the year I get to horror-wise. So yeah, it's a really neat app, and fully recommend anybody that wants to log what they watch throughout the year to download the app and check it out. It's really fun.
Yeah, I agree. It's pretty cool actually, just kind of looking back and seeing, what you've seen so far. And I've been trying to kind of keep up with you, but I've been kind of slowing down a little bit myself. But yeah, I've been getting some watches in here lately. But I did want to mention one, since we're going to be talking about scanners, and we talked about it briefly before the show. But Mind's Eye. So this was a first time watch for me, and this was a fun film.
Oh yeah. From what I remember, I know I watched it right around the time it came out, which I think was 2015. I think it came out. So I haven't seen it since it came out, but I remember absolutely enjoying it. Felt like the Scanner sequel we probably never got. It was had a lot to do with that the scanning power and it has a lot of good gore and a lot of good from what I remember, just really just excruciating gore scenes and yeah, talking to you about it makes me want to pop it in and watch it again, just revisit it.
Yeah, it was a pretty fun watch. I I am a huge fan of Scanners. It's one of my favorite Cronenberg films, and this one just kind of hit home. I've never watched the sequels to Scanners at all. I believe you said there was. It actually blew my mind because I found out there was a sequel just the other day. But you told me there was even a third film, and honestly,
Yeah.
I haven't even watched those. But this one felt right. It honestly felt like a new adaptation of a Scanners type film. I mean, even down to kind of like, and we'll get into this later on in the plot and everything of Scanners, but it kind of hit home where the two characters towards the end were having a psychic battle off in a sense, and it really was like, wow, I mean, you could definitely tell this is heavily influenced by Scanners.
Mm-hmm. For sure. I think Mickey Keating, or not Mickey Keating, Joe Begos is the director, and so far everything everything he's done, I've really enjoyed. But you can tell he's a horror fan, and he kind of wears his influences on his sleeve, and kind of does a little homage there to certain films in general. And I think that one's a direct homage to Scanners. So you could tell he absolutely loves Scanners, and he's a big fan.
Oh yeah. Yeah, I actually watched the behind the scenes, and the entire time I noticed that as he was like on set and everything, he was wearing horror movie shirt after horror movie shirt. And even in the interview, he was wearing a horror movie shirt. And then while he was also doing the interview, he had a row of Blu-ray cases behind him. So I know he's a hardcore collector like us, you know.
Yeah, yeah. You definitely tell he's a big fan. I've
Yeah.
watched him recently. I've been watching the Severin collection. Like people go into the Severin vault and pick out like movie recommendations from Severin, and yeah, I saw an episode with him on there. That was pretty cool. You could definitely tell he knows his stuff when it comes to horror. Like he was picking out some good ones.
It's awesome.
Yeah, he's cool. Can't wait to see what else he comes out with. You know, just watching VFW and Bliss. I've just man, he's been seems like he's getting better and better and better with every movie. So that's really really encouraging.
Yeah, I was a fan of Almost Human before I watched this one, and honestly, those are the only two films I've watched from him.
Mm-hmm.
But it's got me wanting to watch more of his filmography now. I will
Yeah.
say that. Like, I know that you've been kind of praising VFW, and I know I need to get that. But yeah, I definitely am gonna start checking out his filmography more. I think.
Hell yeah, buddy. I honestly think you won't be disappointed.
No, I haven't been yet. We are going to be talking about Scanners right off the rip. Um, Tony, first thoughts.
Oh, first starts. With Scanners, it's a movie. It's probably now that I think about it, it's honestly one of the first Cronenberg films I remember watching. Watched it super young. Didn't realize what it was about. Yeah, I was just sucked in immediately. With this watch, again, I feel like a broken record here, but I get sucked in with Howard Shore's score. Like his music just draws me right in, and I love the way it starts out. I love the score in general, but one thing about this film that I praise and I think it's phenomenal is the sound design. The the way that certain when somebody's scanning and that somebody's using the telepathy and that music cue comes on and you hear it and it's just that droning sound and I just love that, dude, and it was consistent throughout the entire film. um and I just dig it so much. I love that kind of stuff. But the score itself is really good too. I thoroughly enjoy it. I love that music. I love that David Cronenberg had a great relationship with Howard Shore and used him in a lot of his films. You could definitely tell they had a good working relationship. And he's just a really good composer. So yeah, that's the first thing I noticed. Going in is the music. Um, what about you, man? What are your initial thoughts on Scanners? I know we didn't really talk too much pregame about it, so I'm kind of curious what you think going in.
Scanners, honestly, so as kind of a younger gentleman, I remember going to rental places. Scanners was always a case that always kind of intrigued me. I remember seeing it on the shelf, and stuff like that. Just the scene where kind of the end battle with Michael Ironside, on the
Mm.
cover. So right there, just it always reminded me of the time when I would go into movie theater, or not movie theaters, but movie rental places. Um, so it's kind of an iconic case for me, because I've seen it so many times. But honestly, the score, what you were talking about with the score, I didn't actually. The movie's so damn action packed and so fun that um, you, as a person trying to critique a film,
Mm.
um, you just kind of you try and listen, or, out for certain things and watch certain things, but you're trying to pay attention to so much, and it just kind of comes with a period of time. The score actually didn't kind of set in with me until I would say that battle scene where they were in the van.
Mm.
That scene where they crash through the record store. That's when I kind of started listening and listening to the wonderful score that is actually there. So I didn't pick up on it until much later in the film. Um, but just action packed and had explosions, and we'll get to the ending. But the ending is really cool. The storyline, I really love the storyline and just the thought process behind this film, and I think that's what mainly draws me into this film. So
I I agree with you completely, man. The story is great. I love love the story and the way it goes and what unravels toward the end, toward the third act, what happens. But I guess before we kind of get to that point, we can kind of talk about the overall plot. Um, Basically, we have a he's our main character Cameron, who lives kind of like a derelict. He's kind of like a homeless, just outcast
Well,
in society, and we slowly learn the reason he lives that way and why he's so distant from people is because he is a scanner, which is effectively a person with telepathy and psychokinesis, or they can read people's minds and literally read everybody's mind that's around him. There's a scene when he's captured. He's captured by a private military company called Consec, um, who want to use his powers to basically counter a renegade scanner who wants to either turn scanners that are on his list that he's compiled. He wants to turn them to his side, or basically kill them off. And he has his group of renegade scanners, and Consec has the idea that, hey, we can use this scanner who's not quite detected by our rogue scanner, which his name is Daryl Revick, played by the fantastic Michael Ironside, I might add. We can use this guy. This, I guess he hasn't really been shown on he's not on anybody's radar, so to speak. To use him to infiltrate Revick's gang and kind of take him down, so that they can preserve uh, what are they doing, Corey? They're like they have like a program that they're using.
yeah.
Because I mean, even in the beginning, they have like a which we which leads to the most iconic scene from the whole movie. They're having like a demonstration of what scanners can do to like a private group, just to
hmm
see, just to kind of introduce them to, I guess, the mainstream kind of. I think that's how that played out. As much as I've seen it, I'm still not 100% on that, but I'm kind of fairly sure that that's what they were doing. Um,
Yeah.
but yeah, that scene happens really really early on in the movie, and I believe the reason that scene did take place in the beginning of the movie was because I've heard that Cronenberg kind of wanted, that was like kind of like a big selling point of the movie, was that fantastic like special effect shot with the head explosion, and Cronenberg wanted to make sure that, hey, if you wanted to see the goods, and you're gonna come in early, don't come in late and expect to see the goods at the end. He's gonna put it in the beginning so that, hey, if you're late, you missed it. Oh well, you just didn't get a chance to see it. So kind of, I did hear that, and I was like, oh, that's pretty interesting. I like that.
Yeah.
Pretty smart part.
Yeah, it is. Kind of keep the audience going a little bit.
Hmm.
Yeah. But yeah, that's the gist of it. Basically you got this one company um who is essentially trying to create, what is it? I guess like a military weapon
Yeah,
in a sense.
they're kind of using, yeah, or at
And
least
then
that's where
it's
their program is heading toward. That's the future that they're wanting.
mhm. and then um and then it's kind of revealed that basically um pregnant women are getting the drug essentially that is supposed to calm the powers down. However, it's affecting the pregnant women and creating more psychokinetic beings, I guess you would say.
Hmm.
Um, but like I said, that's kind of midway through the film, you know, realized and everything.
Right.
But overall, the storyline I thought was awesome. Um, I really loved certain things, like even when like uh, oh God, what's his name? The main character, Connor, right? Is it
Cameron.
Cameron? Cameron, yeah. When he's told to get into the mind of the computer, I thought that was so cool that they were able to accomplish that and everything.
Right. Well, they say that scanners are able to scan anything with the central nervous system, and they say that, well, the computer has a central nervous system, so you should be able to scan and get any information you would want out of the computer, which is almost their last resort of defense to try to um, get across all the information that they need. Um, which I didn't mention that Consec, the company that pretty much kidnapped Cameron. They pretty much snatched him up. It's headed. Their scanner program is headed by Dr. Ruth, which is he's an expert in scanners, and he actually helps Cameron kind of subdue his thought process with a drug that effectively kind of pretty much numbs the scanning process to where it's not overly painful. Because imagine like being able to read everyone's thoughts, and that even in the beginning of the film, they bring him into a room and there's a bunch of people in there, and they slowly bring them in one by one. And before you know it, there's a large group of people, but they're not saying anything, but they're all thinking, having thoughts in their mind. And he's slowly reading just it becomes overwhelming to where I can imagine that there's always a constant headache with somebody who can't control their scanning process, and to where it can be just overwhelming to hear all these people's thoughts. I can't imagine how exhausting and painful it might be if he wasn't to introduce this drug to actually kind of counteract those abilities and kind of subdue them.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. And I think Dr. Ruth's character really kind of helps him learn how to use it properly and channel it a little bit more better. Because when you first meet him, when you first meet Cameron in the mall, it almost seems like he's very naive, almost infant-like with his powers.
Yeah, he doesn't quite know how to control them. Yeah.
You would think, because he's maybe in his mid-30s in the film.
Yeah, they
You
say
would
he's
almost,
in his mid-30s or something like that. Yeah.
yeah, you would almost think that he would know how to channel it by then, but he doesn't. Um, and Dr. Ruth's character really does help him learn how to use it and channel it and control it.
Right.
Which, by the way, I really love that scene because it was almost like a growing moment, because what it was he had to sit in front of a gentleman who could channel his heart and control his heart rate.
Yeah, that was a great scene.
Yeah, and then at one point he was like almost like getting ready. Dr. Ruth's character was almost getting ready to end the session by giving him a shot because it almost seemed like he was uncontrollable. And then he finally turned to him and he was like, "I can control this."
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I thought that was very cool. That was a very cool scene. It was almost kind of like a grown scene in that moment.
Yeah, it shows that he's more in control than he lets off, that he actually has a lot more control of his powers than we even thought that he might.
Mm.
But yeah, which Dr. Ruth pretty much becomes like a mentor to him. And at one point, through all of their techniques and the process of actually helping him control his powers, he kind of looks at him like a surrogate father figure. And you know, spoiler alert, I don't want to, if anyone hasn't seen this movie, I know it's an older film, but I mean, definitely go out and watch it. It's a fantastic movie. Um, of course, we talk about Cronenberg. I mean, we're talking about very, very high quality. So you're getting that when you're sitting down and watching a Cronenberg flick. But the storyline in this is just really great. It's pretty much sets up from Act One to the third act. It progresses and it keeps you enthralled. And we find out, that Dr. Ruth basically, well, I don't know if I want to get into that just yet. We still have a little ways to go, but it's the one negative that I do hear from people, and I understand it. His Cameron, Stephen Lack's acting is very wooden, and I don't know if it's just because he has a monotone sound to his voice and he doesn't really emote too much emotion. But I've heard that is a negative on the film, which I can understand. That's one thing for me is it never really drove me crazy. I just kind of see him as just a monotone, voice and just he doesn't really get to emotional or resonate any emotion like that. But there's people out there like that. That I mean, given his circumstances and what he's been through, being that he's always reading people's minds, he probably doesn't have a lot of, you know, like I said, he's a social outcast, so he doesn't have a lot of interaction with people. So you can kind of see where his character is like not really too much of a man of he's a man of few words. Let's just say that, you
Yeah.
know, growing up the way he did. So it's always a knock I've heard, and then I could kind of see in the storyline where it could play off to where that would be, you know, beneficial for his character. But his acting ability in general is just like, well, you know, he never really went on to become a big name actor. You know, it's not something that, you know, he actually, I think he became a painter or something like that in real life. Like he didn't really act in too many movies, but yeah, I mean, I've heard, you know, people say it's a detriment to the film or whatnot, and it is like a little negative that you put out there and say that, oh, okay, well, it wasn't, and like I said, it wasn't the best acting. Let's just say that, but I don't know if it's because of his voice and his monotone, or whether he just, you know, he can't really act. I mean, either way, it could fit into the story as well. I mean, what do you think, man? What's your thought process on that?
I mean, yeah, like you said, his acting is a little dry. Um, but I think it was more, in my opinion, his acting in the film. Of course, I haven't seen him in too many more films. I think maybe one other film.
Mhm.
But he, like you said, it is kind of dry. However, I think he was really into character. I think his character was really written that way,
Yeah,
in a sense, like just blank stares, stuff like that. Because you do see it often. He almost has like a staring situation. But there again, if honestly, like I said, I mean, in the first scene that you see him in, he's very you know naive and innocent, in a sense. And then later on, as he gets up, I mean, you see some scenes where he's really sure of himself, and even in the end scene, you can definitely tell, that he's really sure of himself when he's in the same room with Daryl Revick.
yeah.
So, I don't know. My opinion, I think he was just really into character. I don't think it
Mhm.
was just so much his acting. I mean, like I said, he does put off kind of a dry sense of acting, but I think that
Yeah.
was more or less his character for this position.
Doesn't really relate too much emotion. But like I said, it for the story, for him to be a social outcast, for him not to have a lot of interaction with people, it kind of makes sense too that he doesn't really know how to speak to people, even though he does know how to carry on a conversation and especially the dialogue scenes he has with Ruth are some of the best, where they go back and forth. And Dr. Ruth is, um, a fantastic, like a really interesting character.
Hmm.
Um, and he is the head of the scanner program for Consec, and we find out that Consec basically has a head of security because they're a private military company. They have a head of security named Braden Keller, who he's a very recognizable actor. Lawrence Dane. I've seen him in a couple of films before. Most notably, Happy Birthday to Me, which is like a really, 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 really really good slasher from the 80s. Enjoyable. I've recognized him from that, but he is basically a double agent of sorts. He's selling information to Revic, kind of letting him know what's going on, what Consec's using. They're using camera to combat him and his renegade scanners, and that plays into the third act and where we go with you know the storyline and stuff like that, because basically Cameron's trying to find a way to infiltrate Revic's group of renegade scanners. But we first get introduced to him by the very very iconic scene that everyone that knows scanners talks about, that amazing head explosion scene, which I still to this day the effects done on that scene are just remarkable. the way it's done, it's incredible. But he's picked just randomly. There's a concept scanner that wants to put on a demonstration for these people, and of course, Revik is picked, and no one knows that he is a scanner as well. So they have like a back and forth mental like scan battle, and it's really really crazy. Well, I mean, it's not really a battle. He kind of dominates that, that scanner, and to the point where it's so much pressure and it's too much for the guy to handle, and his head just literally explodes. And
Yeah.
it's I love the scene because when it explodes, it's like the back of the way it looks is just like a giant meat flap just comes down. It's so funny. I notice that every time I see it. It's it just cracks me up. But
Yeah.
like I said, the scene itself is one of the most iconic, probably the most iconic head explosion of all time in horror. There's not too many that rival it. I mean, unless you're talking about Maniac or something like that. And of course Dawn of the Dead. Those are two that would that would go well, with this one in particular. Um, yeah, dude, it's just fantastic. It really lives up to the hype. I luckily for me, I didn't hear about it when I first saw the movie, and it kind of blew me away when I saw that. I did not expect that to happen at all.
I think my first time watching this movie, I was actually with you. I
Oh
think,
yeah.
yeah, I think you introduced me to this film.
Mm.
Um, and there again, I don't. You told me there was a scene that was crazy in this film, and I didn't know what to expect, and then all of a sudden, the meat flap happened.
Yeah, the meat flap. That's what I call it because it is just like a literal flap of meat that falls down from his head. Which the way they did it, I think they filled up a fake dummy head with a lot of like just random, just
Wasn't it like
stuff.
wasn't it,
Some
wasn't it like SpaghettiOs and dog food or something?
it was like some craft service stuff, or it was a lot of just random stuff that they'd find around, and they basically, I think they shot it with a shotgun, and that's kind of why the effect looks like it does with the meat flap going forward.
Yeah,
Because it looks like something was shot from the back of the head, and it just all came forward the way it
yeah,
was framed. So it was really, I mean, to this day, it still blows my mind when I see it. It's like, damn, it hits. So it's so effective. I mean, leading up to it with the back and forth, it's really cool because the way Cronenberg shoots that sequence, he flips back and forth between the two, and then he'll go on a wider shot of both the actors there, and you can tell that the guy's in extreme pain, and it's just I love the build up to it too. The build up is not talked about enough, but the build up is great.
yeah, yeah. I really love that. Just that whole scene. You can definitely tell Michael Ironside character, Daryl Revick. He obviously he's up to something.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and at first you're watching this as from the audience, and you're just kind of okay, he's struggling to read him or something, and then next thing you know, you realize that, oh shit, no, he was fighting him.
Yeah.
Um, I actually like the scene after this. The scene where they're in the stairwell. I thought that was so damn cool.
Oh yeah, that was cool when he took the when he. I mean, he's basically like completely control of his power. Like he doesn't struggle with it at all. He can effectively make anyone do whatever he wants them to do. So
Yeah.
when he's tackled and they're trying to take him in, um, the doctor's trying to subdue him, and basically takes a needle and gives him, sticks it into him. Is going to stick it into him, but he basically controls his mind and makes him put the needle in his own hand, and you know, basically get pretend like he's subdued, but he's completely in control. And when they're driving him um, into custody, he breaks out in a really, really amazing way by pretty much controlling everybody's mind that is
Mm.
guarding him and making them pretty much, two guys run into a pretty much like a wall and just explode in the car, which is funny because the guys are like, "Yeah, we need to get them out of there. We need to get them out of there." It's like, dude, they're not alive. They're dead. They completely explode. There's no saving those
A
guys at all.
flame.
The car was basically engulfed in flames. It exploded. Like they're dead. There's no
Yeah.
coming back to them. But yeah, and then effectively the head of security, well, not the head of security, but the guy that runs that group, basically makes the guy shoot himself. I'm like, man, that's powerful. Like
Yeah.
how much control he has over his powers. It's incredible. You can tell he's the strongest for sure.
Mhm. Well, I
But
mean,
yeah,
obviously,
yeah,
besides
he's
besides
the guy.
Cameron.
Yeah, oh yeah, which we later find out why too.
Yeah.
So going back to the sequels, man, I'm glad you kind of brought. I didn't even know about the sequels until Screen Factory put out a double feature with both of them, Scanners 2 and 3. And I've actually never saw the sequels. I heard they're not nearly as good. I've always wanted to kind of check them out though. But like I said, I didn't even know that there were sequels to this movie until they put it out. They put out that double feature.
Yeah.
I wasn't even aware that that was a thing.
Yeah. I had never even, like I said, I was just doing some research on it, and then I found out. Um, and it actually blew my mind. I was like, I didn't realize that. I thought, like I said, I thought Mind's Eye was kind of an unwritten sequel, if you will.
Yeah,
It's pretty cool.
yeah, it was really cool. But going back, and Michael Ironside, who plays Daryl Revick, he's so like intimidating, and his performance is so evil. And it's just it's really intimidating. He's a presence on screen. Another guy that every time he's in something, I just love whatever character he's playing because it's almost like he relishes in playing the bad guy. He loves
Yeah.
playing the villain, and we love him for it because he does such a fantastic job of playing the villain.
He's got the look, you
Yeah,
know.
he does. Yeah, he's a bigger guy, and he's like I said, intimidating, and he's just a he plays evil and sinister so well in this because you can tell like his mind is set on what he wants. He wants to control, like, and he wants to control. Basically, it's a he wants to control the world kind of thing. He wants to lead an army of scanners. Pretty much, he wants to be the head of the scanner army and take over the world essentially. So he's got a goal and he sticks to it and he's ruthless and anything in his way he's going to take him out. And he I don't know, he's just really intimidating. He's always been a presence on screen. So
Yeah.
love his character in this. Love how vicious he is.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. He really was kind of a star of the show in this film,
Yeah, it
in a
was
sense, even though his character was was kind of
the
was
baddie.
ruthless and shitty, but at the same time it was really cool. And then the storyline that unfolded between the two characters was really cool, and we'll get into that, I'm sure, here in a little bit.
Yeah,
Um, but before we do, I would definitely want to talk about um just the overall storyline where well, I guess you would say so Cameron has to go and he has to find other psychics like himself that are kind of under the ground, um in which I wanted to talk about what's his name, Silverman, what's his
yeah,
first name, Rob Silverman.
yeah.
Yeah.
So that was his first scanner contact.
Yeah. Well, actually, no, it wasn't. He didn't actually realize that he had met oh gosh, what's her name, what's her name?
Kim, yeah, yeah, Kim. Oh,
Jennifer
yeah.
O'Neill's character,
Mm-hmm.
Kim.
Kim, right?
Yeah, he didn't realize that he had met her before because she actually kind of stopped him from reading somebody else.
Yeah, because he wanted information to get to Silverman's character, who's he plays Benjamin Pierce, who's kind of like a recluse, like artist that you know Has, of course, he is a scanner, but he could have information on how to infiltrate Revik's group of renegade scanners. So he kind of scans. I think it was his manager or his yeah, something like that, for his artwork to try to get information on where he lives. Um,
Yeah, it's the guy's gallery.
yeah, it was his gallery, and he was a contact. So he was trying to get information from him. He wasn't really letting on where he lived. So he was scanning his mind to get that information. And I guess Kim was there and scanned him and kind of, and that's another thing I love when they are scanned. They do have that continuity with the nosebleeds. So
Yeah, I
the
thought
nose,
that's a cool
right?
touch.
There's a nice little touch that I love that they did. But she scanned him to kind of counteract his scanning of the art gallery manager. But he still found out where he lived and went to go visit him. And of course, at first he was very, like, don't, I'm not going to help you, dude. Like I'm just here. I like to be secluded in my own headspace. And I love that they're talking about scan. There's even a point where they're talking about scanning and controlling people's thoughts and their thoughts while they're in a giant human head.
Yeah, I like that.
I thought that was pretty neat because he's an artist, so he built the structure of a giant human head, and he was sitting in there, and then Cameron would go in there, carry on their conversation, and they would just have a conversation about scanning and what goes on in people's heads and what their thought processes are while they're in a giant human head. I just love I love how that played out.
The irony behind it.
The irony behind it, yeah,
Yeah,
pretty funny.
yeah. Well, then one of the other things that I liked was there's a scene where so he then seeks out help from Kim's um I guess you would say private organization
Yeah, she
of
has her own
scanners.
scanners. Mhm.
Yeah, she's got like a group of scanners, and they were all like scanning together, which I thought was really cool.
That was a
And
neat scene.
yeah, and then just the whole scene where the two guys go in to kill him, and obviously these two guys are Revik's guys, um, and they go in, and they go to kill him, and they just start blasting these dudes away with a shotgun,
Yeah, it's pretty
and
brutal.
like all these people are still like smiling, and it's
Yeah,
like they're almost like in a trance. It was really
pretty
weird.
much. Like the whole process of scanning in a group like that, just makes them completely oblivious to what's going on around them. So those guys are able to infiltrate and pretty much blow them all away. But she
Yeah.
says something really chilling after a lot of her fellow scanners die. She says to Cameron at one point, she says, "Now I know what it's like to die," which I thought was really chilling because
Mm.
they were linked with that scan, so she felt what they felt when they died, which is pretty
God, yeah,
really chilling scene or really chilling line from her.
yeah, it's
But
pretty.
they basically try to make an escape and um but just try to get away from these guys that are pretty much hitmen trying to take them all out. Um,
Mhm.
so they pile up in a jeep, or not a jeep, a van, and get in a chase, and eventually, really crazy scene, crash into this like record store or this store. It's really cool, really neat how they shot that and how they framed that whole sequence. It was
Yeah,
really cool.
yeah, it was pretty neat.
Yeah, there's a lot of stuff in the background you can look at and see. Oh, that's cool. That's neat. That's a lot of like background eye candy.
I like how they started working together in a sense.
Mm.
She almost kind of came or became like a kind of like a Robin type character, almost like sidekick, if you will.
Yeah, but she could hold her own too. She was powerful. She was tough.
She was really powerful. Did you see what she did to those two guys? She like basically planted them against the wall and just made them go up in flames. I thought that was pretty cool. Like they spontaneously combusted. That was really neat effects, by the way.
Oh
That was
yeah,
really cool.
all those kind of effects were great.
Yeah, I definitely want to talk about the effects. I want to have like a small segment on the effects alone because I could have a field day.
Yeah, I got a lot to say about the effects toward the end with the scanner battle. That was amazing to me.
Definitely. Well, I guess we can kind of go ahead and start talking about some of those. Basically there's the scene where I was talking about where Cameron infiltrates the computer system, and he's trying to focus in on the right program
Mm-hmm.
at Consac, which
Yeah.
is basically given the information about the doctor who's given out the drug to the pregnant women. And
Mm-hmm.
essentially it's going to end up that whole situation is going to end up leading um, Cameron and Kim to Daryl Revick, which they
Right.
still want to try and find. And just that one scene where they're at the gas station and he's honing in on the computer at Consac through the payphone. Well, when the computer explodes and everything, when he lets go of that phone, the phone's like melting.
Yeah, it's melting in his hand. It's really cool.
I thought that was the coolest fucking thing. That was so cool.
Yeah,
A
I
lot,
dig it. Just the
a
way it
lot.
melted.
Yeah, yeah, the way it melted and everything. Um, but honestly, when we get to the end, that's when it really the special effects really started shining for me. That
Oh yeah,
end battle. And I guess
completely.
we can kind of go into that if you want.
Right.
Um, so at this point, the Cameron and Kim now go see the doctor that basically
Doctor
what's his name?
Dr. Ruth.
No, not Dr. Ruth, the
Oh,
other doctor.
the doctor at the okay, yeah, I know what you're talking about. Um, yeah, they link the drug that the scanners use to pretty much subdue their abilities is called ephemeral.
Hmm.
And basically what Revick is doing is sending out ephemeral to this list of doctors so that so that the doctors can prescribe it to pregnant women so that they can what we find out is the ephemeral effectively creates scanners.
Hmm.
So what Revick wants to do is pretty much create a scanner army by sending it out to all these pregnant women and having their unborn children become scanners. Um, which we find out the reason why Revick and Cameron are the strongest ones is because they're actually um, Dr. Ruth's kids. They're actually brothers. And Dr. Ruth created ephemeral and was testing it out on his wife, who was pregnant with you know both Cameron and Daryl, and which is why that they were so effectively strong and stronger than the other scanners and had more of a honed grasp on their powers rather than the other scanners who were kind of raw. They didn't really know how to control their powers essentially. Um, but um, that's why they had a lead on Cameron because they pretty much separated them so they wouldn't, I guess for the fact that they wouldn't get together and try to, take down humanity,
Hmm.
keep them separated. I'm not quite sure why they separated. It's brought up by Revick when he's explaining to Cameron that, hey, I'm your brother. I've been looking for you for all these years. Um, he wants him to join in his crusade and taking out everybody and pretty much leading this army. But Cameron just isn't for it, and he wants to pretty much battle his brother, and that's when we get the iconic. To me, it's very iconic because it's the scene that really stuck with me is that battle and the way that music plays out, and then the effects and the way it's shot back and forth with them trading blows. It's just really, really such a. And I even texted you when I was watching. I was like, "Man, this scanner battle is fucking incredible. It's
It
so
is.
cool.
That's good.
Yeah, it's
Yeah.
wicked."
So I really love how um right there in one instance, Daryl Revick, he's like, look, I've never wanted to harm you. I've been looking for you. Essentially he wants to work with Cameron,
Right.
you know. And he's like, I haven't injured Kim, and he was telling the truth. Kim is in the other room next door. Huh?
Yeah, she was completely unharmed.
Yeah, and he was like, she'll be up in a few hours, you know. And he basically just wanted to, just talk with him and everything. And then essentially, he then comes out with saying, and spoiler alert, I think we're done with spoilers at this point.
Yeah. I
um,
went ahead and put it out there just in case the listeners hadn't watched it yet.
yeah. But I mean, he flat out says, our father, and that's when that's when Cameron's realizing, that Daryl Revick is his brother,
Mm.
and then Ruth is their father, right? I mean,
Yeah.
it was never explained, but yeah, okay, so yeah, it was explained that he was given ephemeral to their mother,
Yep.
in which made them what they were, and they are the most powerful ones actually. Um, and then pretty much Cameron doesn't want to follow Daryl's lead,
He doesn't
and
believe it. He doesn't believe in his cause. He doesn't want to, split the world up and have scanners against humans and just pretty much turn it into a war zone. He's not for it. He believes that they can do some good with their powers, and it's essentially built up to where Daryl's he's kind of like he's kind of not a head case, but he's completely lost his grip on reality, but still able to function normally in society, which is really fascinating for his
well,
character.
would you would you argue the fact that Daryl wants to essentially take over the world with
So
these psychokinetic beings?
absolutely, it's built it to where taking over which we didn't mention before. Dr. Ruth, their father, created this company called Biocarbon Amalgamate, which Daryl is in charge of, which is producing the ephemeral to give to these doctors so they can prescribe it to these pregnant women. Because he wants to, essentially, that's his grand plan, is to create a scanner army, have all these babies with the scanning ability, and then to rally them up for his cause to have a giant army of scanners, so where he feels he is as powerful as anybody and can pretty much take on anybody. Um, so yeah, you could definitely tell the way he's telling Cameron his plan and stuff like that. He's thought about it. He's masterminded this. He's pretty much thought of just about everything, and he's really convinced that Cameron will be on his side,
Hmm.
especially given the fact that he's dropping a bombshell. Well, hey, we're family. We're brothers. We can rule the world together as brothers. That kind of thing. You know.
Yeah,
So he effectively wants to control the world. It's the power that he seeks. He just wants to be all powerful and lead this army.
yeah, yeah, and then the infamous battle happens.
Yeah, the battle's great,
Yeah,
and it's the music playing too. When they're it's really hard to explain. They're able to, and I love the effects where the blood is rippling up from the arms, and the veins are popping out, and at one point, um,
a vein,
Cameron's
a vein
it's
actually
almost
popped,
yeah, the
and
veins. You see the blood
yeah,
spurt.
I found myself going, "Wow, that's really realistic. Like, how did they manage to do that?"
Yeah, I've always wanted to see like a documentary on how this movie was made. I've always wanted, if there's a movie I want a documentary on, it's this one, just to see how things were shot, how they were made, how Cronenberg effectively thought up the special effects for the scenes, and man, I just wish we had one.
Well, sidetrack. Was there anything on the Criterion? Because I've got the Criterion Blu-ray,
I
uh, but I actually I let Daniel borrow it, so
okay. I
uh,
don't I don't
I can't
think
go
so.
back and check.
There might be a commentary on there that I haven't checked out yet, where maybe they go into explaining that. I need to look into that. I need to actually do more commentaries, to be honest with you.
I did
Uh,
too.
but as far as like a full-fledged documentary, I would love to see that, where they really get in depth on these effects and the story and how the film was made. Because it came out at a very crucial time for Cronenberg's career. He would go on to do this, and then what many consider his classic films right afterwards. So just to see where his mind was at the time, and of course, he did The Brood prior, so this is like the golden age of Cronenberg at this point.
Yeah, I think all the way up from this point. Well, I would say from The Brood up until
From the,
even
from
Fly.
the yeah.
I don't really know too much more after that.
Hmm.
Um, but yeah, getting back to the battle scene. I just, like I said, I couldn't believe it. I actually wanted more. I think that I thought to myself the battle scene was just not as quick as it came, it went, and I was like, damn, I really wanted more. I found myself leaving the film wanting more, actually.
Yeah. Well,
Um,
you can tell those shots and stuff were there was a lot of time spent to getting those shots right and just the effects, and you could tell there was a lot of time. So I knew they couldn't have made it too much longer. But I'm
mhm.
with you, dude. I could have used about 5 more minutes of that battle. It was just intense, man.
Yeah, it really
It
was.
kept you on the edge of your seat.
Yeah. And then the ultimate, with the eyes exploding out and everything, that was really well done. That was really cool.
That was really awesome.
So, and then leading up to the climax of the film, Kim's waking up, the battle is over, and she walks into the room where the battle took place. And you see this charred body laying on the floor. And I think she realizes that that was Cameron's body. So it almost plays off as if Cameron lost the battle and
Right.
Daryl Revick is still alive.
Which
And
you watching can see because he does, basically at pretty much the climax of the battle, he is engulfed in flames at that point. But
yeah,
he's almost like accepted the fate, and he's very tranquil, if that makes any sense. If you notice that when because I noticed that too, because his face is just very like accepting of what's happening, which we
mhm,
find out why, which I know you're going to allude to. But yeah, that's why the charred body's there. It's like, oh no, Cameron was, he unfortunately didn't make it, and his body's completely, charred. But
mhm.
then after that, of course, Corey, where you were going with it.
Yeah, so basically, yeah, after that, you hear a voice coming from the corner of the room, and there's, obviously Daryl Revick, with his trench coat on, is kind of slumped over in the corner, and he turns around and he says, "It's me, Cameron," and his eyes are even a different color.
Yeah, it's
Um,
Cameron.
it's Cameron's eyes.
Even his voice too.
Yeah, his voice is not Michael Ironside's voice. It's now Cameron's voice. So I thought I thought that was a really neat touch, really cool to the story and
Mhm.
everything.
And it
So
basically essentially tells you, "Hey, we won. Like we we did it."
yeah,
So
we
it's like
did it. Did it.
it's a
Yeah.
it's a happy ending. It's really
In a
really
sense,
yeah,
yeah,
it is, man.
it's definitely a Cronenberg ending. It's definitely strange.
Hmm.
But it's a definitely a really good ending. I honestly, it was an ending I didn't see coming.
No,
And
definitely.
even
First time
watching
watching
it now, well, even watching it now, I didn't remember the ending, and I was still blown away. Of course,
it.
I hadn't watched it in a few years, and I need to revisit it more often than I should, or than I have, I guess you would say. But so yeah, that was Scanners. And if you
Yeah.
guys haven't seen it, sorry we spoiled it for you, but it's still a great film. You need to go
Yeah.
check it out.
Check it out. Check it out. Make sure you seek this movie out and watch it if you stop when we've said spoilers and wanted to be spoiler free. Hopefully you enjoy, and yeah, it's like I said, it's a fantastic movie. Cronenberg once again just knocks it out the park. Can't
Hmm.
say any more about it. It's just it's a great watch. You get really invested in the story.
Tony, something I picked up on while we were sitting here. I was going over IMDb and just kind of glancing at things and looking at things. The
Mm.
release date for this film caught my eye, so we decided to do David Cronenberg for the month of January, and that was just honestly out of the blue and our love for David Cronenberg's films.
Yep.
We had no particular reason why we chose David Cronenberg for the month of January. Did you know this movie came out January 14th, 1981?
I do. I noticed that too because when I was on Facebook, I saw a lot of like I saw a lot of people post that, and I thought about it. I was like, man, what a just completely just randomly we picked this month to do Cronenberg, and sure enough, this movie had a anniversary. It's really crazy how that all played out.
Yeah, really, honestly, just a couple days ago, actually,
Yep.
an
Yep.
anniversary. That's so cool.
Very cool. I'm glad you brought that up, Corey. That was a neat little touch too.
Yeah. So, yeah, like we said, if you haven't seen it, definitely go check it out and tell us what you guys think of this film on our Facebook group. And also, I'm going to raise the question: have you seen any of the sequels? Because we haven't, and we would like to know more about them. So if you have seen them, don't spoil it for us, but just tell us whether or not we'll be wasting our time or not. But I'm planning on checking them out.
Yeah, me too, man. Me too.
With that, that was Scanners, and now we're going to be moving on to our second film, which
Yeah,
I'm excited. I'm excited about this one too.
very, very stoked for this one. There's a lot to get into.
Yeah, so the next film that we're going to be talking about is Videodrome. Um, what year did this come out, Tony?
1983.
Oh yeah, 1983. So, uh, yeah, well, let's just jump straight into it. First thoughts on this one, Tony? Anything?
First thoughts on this one, a movie that at the time I watched it, when I first saw it, I was not prepared for, didn't understand at all. But with subsequent viewing and really delving into it, this movie is it's so metaphorical. It's so unique. It's it's one of those Cronenberg films that just sticks with you. When you watch it, you think about it. I know when I first saw it, it stuck with me for a while, and I was like, I didn't get it. I know there's something there I didn't get, but with as many times as I've seen it now, I completely understand. Doing the research on it, I get it. It makes so much more sense now than it did when I was younger. And I think I
Mhm.
just watched it at the wrong time. Not to say I didn't like it. I left it thinking, like what was the underlining meaning? What was Cronenberg trying to say with this film? Basically, that's the question I had. Where was he going with it? What was he trying to say? And now I can honestly say I understand what he was trying to say. I understand what he was trying to do. What are your thoughts on this one, man?
Oh man. Honestly, my thoughts going into this movie, because this was a film that I had purchased, and honestly, you had told me several times about in our early years of collecting horror, and honestly, I didn't have it right away in the collection. I think I picked it up maybe 5, 6 years ago,
Right.
and I watched it for the first time, and I was I just remember leaving the film going, well, that was a wild ride.
Yeah. It's one thing you would definitely take away from this movie.
Yeah. Yeah. So basic storyline on this film is you meet a like a TV channel producer
Yeah.
who specializes in basically like softcore smut,
Yeah.
you would say.
Like really,
It's
really
it's
seedy
almost
program.
yeah, it's almost like the late night on HBO back in the day.
Yeah.
Just really choppy and crappy softcore porn, essentially.
Yeah.
And he gets wind of this film, and he's trying to do research on it and trying to figure out where this film came from, or I guess clips from a film called Videodrome, in which later on he finds out a little bit too much about it. Um, and I'm going to kind of leave the story right there because I want to dig more into it versus actually just telling the plot.
Which, yeah, for the listeners, and we will be delving into this one. So, full spoiler alerts from this point on. If you haven't seen it before, please, we recommend you go check it out, watch it, and enjoy it for the experience alone. And then if you want to come back and listen to our thoughts, feel free. But we just want to let you guys know ahead of time we will be going deep into this film and kind of talking about the themes and whatnot. So if you don't want to be spoiled, we're just giving you a heads up.
So, yeah, jumping into this right away, you start to recognize some faces. Of
Oh,
course, James Wood.
James
Um,
Woods. He plays Max Wren, which he's such a charismatic, like such a just a sleazeball guy, but you just root for him. He's kind of like that guy that, he's not an asshole, really. He's not like a dick, but he kind of has that snarky, comedic wit about him. And he's one of those guys. He's almost set up to where you don't want to like him, but you do. You just love his personality and his
yeah,
snarkiness and his character. So
it's
you
James.
just root for the guy. Yeah, and a lot of that's got to do with, of course, James Woods, who's just James Woods. He's a legend. I mean,
Yeah. But yeah, so like you said, but you don't really actually get to know right away that he's kind of the sleazeball of a person until that interview. That
no,
that interview right there alone, it is like so. Well, I guess you would say kind of uncomfortable in a sense. It's like when
oh,
he's sitting there with Nikki Brand,
right.
who's so she's basically like this therapist, I guess radio talk show therapist.
Mhm.
And she's on the show and she's wearing this red dress, and he was like, "That's why you wore that red dress. You're very seductive," or something. And she's like,
It's
"Well, that's
it's all
exactly
about
why I wore the red dress."
it's all about stimulation. They're trying to bring him on this show to be like, hey, you deal in smut. Do you feel bad for what you do, or do you have some guilt about what you do? He's like, no, basically we're a small, station, and pretty much what we do is economical for us. We have to do stuff like this that the other big studios aren't doing, because that's our way to stay above water. That's our way to stay afloat and survive in this climate. We have to show this kind of stuff. But it comes to a point where he wants more. He wants to show his viewers more, something different, something unique, something they have never seen before. And when you
And
know
video is introduced.
right, when his program, or his the pirate, his name's Harlan, which he's played. I can't remember the actor's name, but this guy is so charismatic too. Another guy that you
Peter
just
Dvorsky.
yeah.
Yeah.
I remember when we watched Dead Zone. I saw him in that. He was one of the interviewers, or the press, the TV press that was interviewing Christopher Walken's character.
Oh, okay. Cool.
Seeing him, I'm like, oh yeah, that's the guy from Videodrome. Okay, I recognize him. But he's another guy that's really charismatic. He's always calling James Woods Padrone, which is funny. He keeps calling him that throughout the movie, and just making like little snide comments to him. And they have a really good banter back and forth, those two. You just love seeing them together and their interaction together. But he's a pirate. He kind of like finds stuff that that they're not really supposed to find, and Videodrome just happens to be one of these channels that they're not really supposed to find. He only has a clear image of it for like a couple of seconds before it completely gets phased out again. So he shows him a little clippet of it, and right from the beginning, like James Woods' character Max Wren is very, very intrigued, and he wants to know more, because basically it's nothing but a room with torture going on, and it's very, very in your
Right.
face. It's not very, yeah, it's very visceral. So as soon as that happens, he's automatically intrigued. He wants to know more, and then when he basically um, delves into it more, he goes down a rabbit hole, and it's insane what it leads up to.
Well, it's explained that once you watch it, you're basically kind of sucked into it in a sense. Um, but going back to what you were saying about some noticeable characters, I actually um oh god, what's her name? Uh Nikki in the movie, Nikki, um was played by Debbie Harry, and I didn't realize that, and I was like, God, she looks so familiar. Where do I know her from? And it wasn't until I watched the film, and or checked it out online, and I was like, oh, holy crap, it's the lead singer from Blondie.
Yeah.
You know, I didn't dawn on me because she didn't have the blonde hair. I guess that was what was throwing me off. I
Right.
was like,
Yeah. You
she
did
looks
never
so
see the blonde
familiar.
hair.
Yeah, but yeah, I even while I was watching the first couple scenes with her, I already started picking it out. So basically, in the story, um, after that interview, Max Wren,
Mhm.
played by James Wood, just pretty much like starts coming around Nikki and just trying to, I guess, date her or
Yeah.
have a
Romantic
sexual
relationship. Yeah.
relationship with her.
Mhm.
Um, at one point, she comes by his apartment and she's like, "Oh, do you have any porn we can watch?" He's like, "Well, I've got," or she checks out Videodrome. She's like, "What's Videodrome?" And he was like, "Torture, murder, that sort of stuff. I'm sure you don't want to see that." And she was like, "Let's watch it."
Right. She's
So
automatically turned on to the idea of watching that.
yeah, so right away you can tell she's got some kink in her, you
She
know.
definitely does. We find out that she definitely has like a kink. She loves to be kind of like abused in a way. Like she kind of gets off on the pain and this she has like a sexual thrill from that. And
Right.
it kind of I
Yeah,
mean
because
that's what I
at one point she's like, "Would you cut me?" And that's when he pulls down her shoulder and he's like, "Looks like somebody's already beat me to that."
yeah.
So she's definitely got a kinky side to her. And then at one point you see them laying there naked and he's piercing her ears.
Mhm.
I thought this was funny, and I wrote this down in my notes because earlier on in the interview and while she's in the radio talk show, she has earrings in.
Yeah. So she has her ears pierced already.
So he really is just sticking a needle through her earring hole,
Yeah.
and apparently she's getting off on
Yeah. She
that.
wishes on the pain and it's like sadomasochism with her. She likes that dark, seedy side of like she has that sexual thrill. And
Mhm.
you can tell she wants like more extreme and he's kind of like a little just
Kind of
baffled by it.
hesitant to it a little bit.
Yeah, for sure. Like
Yeah.
I don't he expected that from her. Which we, as us as the audience, we don't really see that anyway either. It just kind of hits us all at one time. It's like, wow, really? Like that's crazy. I didn't see that coming
Hmm.
uh, at all. I didn't expect that from her. She looks more wholesome, and like she wouldn't be into that kind of things. But I mean, that's what subverts our expectations. I mean, we don't expect it, but then Cronenberg kind of throws that at us, and we're like, oh shit, you just don't see that. So it's pretty interesting. But I realized something, man. I wrote down on my notes too. I know it's kind of like it's not really off subject, but Cronenberg hit a strong like it, especially in his early '80s films where he had like charismatic leads. Like he had James Woods, Jeff Goldblum in The Fly, Christopher Walken in Dead Zone. These actors are really charismatic. He hit like a streak with these guys to get
Yeah.
them as leads in his films was really impressive.
You could
And
almost tell that it was almost like he wrote some of these uh, characters in specific for certain roles or certain people, I guess you would say.
kind of,
You know,
yeah.
because I mean, I could definitely see James Wood and no one else really playing Max Wren. You
Not
know,
like
I mean, that was
not
definitely a perfect fit.
absolutely.
And then even still with like, you go back to like the Dead Zone, for instance, Christopher Walken was phenomenal in that film.
Mhm.
So I could see where you're right about David Cronenberg and how he writes, or how he picks on these certain guys for these roles.
For
So I
his
could
leads,
definitely see,
yeah.
yeah, for the leads. So that's really cool. But yeah, and then also, like I've said before, he definitely uses his select few. So it's almost like he's got his shining star and then his select few, which I'm surprised that you know for this one I didn't see a whole lot of people from his other films in this film actually,
Hmm.
which I thought was interesting because everyone else, a lot of them have been, we talked about Robert Silverman earlier. He's been in a lot of Cronenberg's films,
Right.
you know.
Oh, for sure. And I know one actor in particular, Leslie Carlson, who plays Barry Convex. I know Leslie is in a ton of Cronenberg films. So there was his one regular right there in this one. Um, he was in The Fly, of course, Dead Zone. He was in quite a few. So to see his face is like, oh yeah, okay. There's David's regulars popping out. Like you can kind of see. But like to your point, there's not like of his earlier mainstay of actors. You don't see a ton of them in this
Mm-mm.
for sure. And I did notice that this time around. I'm like, no, they're probably like background extras or something like that. But no, I didn't see them.
Yeah.
They weren't too relevant, I'd say.
Mm-mm. Um, but yeah, going back to the storyline now. Um, just when he starts digging more into Videodrome, that's when shit really starts hitting the fan for Max. He follows is he a professor or
Yeah, Professor Oblivion.
yeah, Professor Oblivion, who you find out obviously isn't his real name, but he it's really cool because it's almost like he's channeling in through Videodrome to Max, in a sense. He even speaks to Max in one of the videos that's sent to him by his daughter, uh, Bianca Oblivion. Well, I guess Oblivion is his actual name, isn't it?
Yeah. Yeah.
I thought it was. I might be wrong.
Well, I think there's
But,
a line of dialogue in the movie where he explains that, or that said that it's not his given name. I can't. I think there's a line of dialogue in there, but I can't remember fully.
yeah, I thought that's exactly the words.
Subconsciously, yeah, it's probably in there somewhere.
Wasn't a
Probably.
given name or something. Yeah, but apparently, Professor Oblivion's been dead for a couple of years now. He was murdered,
Right.
uh, I guess, by the people that own Videodrome or something. I
Well,
kind of
it's
lost
yeah,
it a little
it's
bit.
said that he's helped create Videodrome almost in a sense with Convex too, which turns out to be one of our main antagonists in this movie.
Mhm.
Um, so it's kind of like they created Videodrome as a way, and I think this is really fascinating what the movie did. They pretty much programmed Videodrome in a way to weed out the depraved people that really enjoy this kind of stuff. Like they watch stuff like this and they want to like get rid of these people. So effectively, the more you watch this programming, it creates a tumor in your head that basically ends up killing you, which goes into the body horror side of things for Cronenberg. But it pretty much the more you're exposed to Videodrome, the more you're exposed to the violence and the senseless, depravity that's going on screen. The more you're hooked into it, but you don't realize that it's killing you slowly. And basically, what Convex wants to do is, and Oblivion wasn't aware of this when they had this idea. Convex wants to use it to rid the world of like the depraved people that get off on this kind of stuff. He wants to make the world more normal. And there's even a line of dialogue that says that you know the world's getting too tough, and we need to live up to the standards of the world and where the world's going to, and that means weeding out all the weak and the people that get off on this kind of stuff and enjoy this kind of stuff and really watch it as as leisurely as they do. The degenerates, all the perverts, all of those people, like they want to just pretty much extinct that race of people, essentially.
Yeah,
Yeah. So that's why Videodrome was created, and why you know Oblivion was one of the first casualties of this, is because he did watch it, so he effectively grew the tumor in his brain because just watching it once will, and I noticed that too, going in, because I wondered, I was like, well, Convex is one of the main culprits, one of the main people that created Videodrome, and I was like, well, Oblivion was exposed to it. I thought Convex was too, but then of course Cronenberg brilliantly has a line of dialogue come from Convex that said, "Hey, I never watched this kind of stuff. It's just not for me," or something like that. And I'm like, "Oh, okay. Well, that makes sense. He's not exposed to it because he's never seen it.
Yeah.
He exposes the world to it." So I thought about that. I'm like, how is he not exposed? And then that line of dialogue quickly shut that process of thinking down for me. And I'm like, well, that's just Cronenberg tying up loose ends right there.
Mhm.
Just doing what he does best,
Even
subverting.
Harlan explained that he hasn't watched it either.
Right, because James Woods' character comes to the realization, like, you never watched it. That's why it doesn't affect you. Like, he understands it more.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's pretty cool because what they basically do, what Videodrome does, is it breaks down Max like self consciousness, and he doesn't realize what's going on around him. Basically, what they turn him into is an assassin for their own good, which which leads into the body horror because there's scenes of Videodrome taking over his mind, and he doesn't understand what's reality and what's fiction. So the things that he's seeing in his mind, he sees them, but he doesn't know if it's reality or not. He's
Yeah.
losing. He's pretty much losing his grip on sanity.
Hmm. And like you said, there at this point, Concept can kind of control him, or Convex, excuse me. Convex can kind of control him and basically turn him into a killing machine, essentially.
Right. And then it's played out brilliantly because one of the most famous scenes from this movie is, like the vagina on his stomach. That pretty much, and it's set up really, really effectively too, because there's an early scene where he's like, I don't know, something. Somebody asked him like, "What's going on with you?" And he's like, "I don't know. I have like a rash or something." And he keeps scratching his stomach. So it's built up beforehand before that even happens. So I thought that was another thing. It's like foreshadowing. It's brilliant, like the way Cronenberg does that. It's subtle things like that you miss like the first time you watch this movie, but then when you realize what's going on, you kind of see it and you're like, oh, you look out for that kind of stuff.
Hmm. Yeah, which I was kind of left wondering why he stuck the gun in his stomach. I
Yeah,
didn't.
well, he was
I
so
really didn't
basically,
understand that.
what he was doing, and I didn't understand either, was he was scratching his stomach with the gun.
Hmm.
Like he would, there was a couple shots where it would pan to him, and he was, sitting there watching Videodrome, and pretty much hallucinating again. And he was using you could see like a rash was starting to form where it was eventually going to where it was eventually going to pop up, and he would effectively just scratch his stomach with the gun, and
Hmm.
eventually it pans down and there's a giant vagina on his stomach, which he's like, what the fuck? He looks at it and is like, basically he's like, okay, I'm losing it. I'm trying to get my grip on sanity, but he can't. Like Videodrome's affected him so much to where he can't snap out of it.
Yeah, but then
So
yeah, it's still such a weird scene to me because then like so he's sitting there and then he's got this giant vagina on his stomach essentially, and then out of nowhere he's like, I'm just gonna shove this gun in here, see what happens. I
puts
love
the
when he
gun.
pulled his yeah, I love when he pulled his hand out and everything. He's like, oh shit, where did that gun go? And then he's like starts tearing apart his apartment looking for this gun.
It's
You,
just
be,
it's
you
so
become
wild.
one with the lead at this point.
Right. There's so many themes in this movie that going on, and um, it just the more you watch it, the more you pick up on the themes of psychology, psychosexual perversion, your grip on reality versus your perception on what violence that you're seeing on the TV screen. There's even a wonderful line by Oblivion. He said, "Television is the retina to the mind's eye," which I thought was a really, really fascinating line. And that's the one that kind of stuck with me because, as our culture, where we are, and even back then, the home video era was booming back then. A lot of people were watching, TV at the time, and a lot of stuff was like there was violence on TV.
Yep.
So there was almost like an over sensualization of violence. It was just like, but Cronenberg kind of touched on the theme, like how does violence affect us as humans? Like when we see it on TV, how do we perceive it, in our subconscious, and what do we think about it? And that's the theme I love about this movie. And the more I've watched it over the years, the more I picked up on that. He's kind of, and it's got a lot to do with horror fans too. Us being horror fans, are we desensitized to violence? I mean, we see so much of it. I always say, like, some of the stuff you see in movies and stuff is not nearly as bad as the stuff you see on the news. I mean, the news, just loves to, you know, cover the depressing and the depraved, all the craziness going on in the world just because it's the way the world is now. So it's like a lot of stuff you see on the news is worse than what you're seeing on some horror films that you're watching.
Yeah.
So this movie's really deep, man. It makes you question things. It makes you look at things in a different perspective. It's a movie it's a thinker movie, and I love that. I love that about this movie. It really has you, really questioning, like your perception versus reality, what your over centralization of violence can do to you, or what it makes you think. Like, I never like, I watched, horror movies when I was younger, and it never turned me into a depraved maniac. Like, I'm just a normal everyday dude. So to have people, and, people got on, there was a whole crusade in the 80s about, what kids are watching and stuff like that, oh, if you watch horror films, you're going to turn into a violent killer when you're older, and this and that, just to pretty much censor, what kids are watching and stuff like that, to scare parents into having them, do the ratings and all that stuff. So, it kind of tackles it kind of delves into that a little bit, but not too much. I kind of put two and two together with that, and kind of can see, how it was like a social commentary at the time, so I don't know, man. There's just a lot of themes and metaphors going on in this.
Oh yeah, definitely. And one of the messages definitely is how much violence is on TV. There was definitely a message in this film.
Mm-hmm.
So, and almost like how much violence do we allow on TV?
Yeah. And does violence turn people violent? Like, if your over centralization of violence and your over saturation of violence, will that turn you violent? As a person, you just become numb to it at that point. Because this was back when, VHS was starting to, the boom was coming, and home media was big, and anybody could go to the video store and rent like anything they wanted to, and just be, it just be an overload of, like, gore and just violent stuff on TV from, watching these, horror films and stuff like that. Like, it just became a normal thing. And, it's almost like society's like lashing out at, how easy it is to pick up a horror film and watch it for a child or something like that. It's just, at that time, it was really simple. Like, I know a lot of my friends I've talked to when they were younger, they were able to go into the video store and rent, rated R horror films at a young age, no problem. Like,
Yeah.
they had their older brother get it for them, or their older sister, or older sibling, somebody, even their mom or dad. Like, it wasn't anything. They didn't really care so much about the violence. They just didn't want the nudity and the over. Yeah, it was always like that. You always hear stories where the parents are like, "Oh, I didn't care if my kid watched, violent, a violent movie. I just didn't want him to see any nudity or anything like that." I've heard that a lot. So,
Which, I mean, there again, with Cronenberg films, you don't really see a whole lot of nudity.
no, you don't.
You know, I mean, you definitely see more. You definitely see a lot of sexuality with his films, but not so much like sleaziness, almost like a like a Roger Corman film or anything like that.
No, he definitely doesn't shoot scenes with this, like, with a over centralization of sleaze and all that stuff. Like, that doesn't really happen. It's more tasteful, and dude, I gotta say, the effects too, with the pulsating TV, and just, oh man, I'm still like, how the hell did they do that? How did they do that?
I mean, that was one of the things I brought up, and I just I brought up I wrote down in my notes that Max's TV was very veiny.
Oh yeah, like and it was like everything was pulsating, like
It
everything had
was even
a
before he put the tape in. The tape was even pulsating a little
it
bit.
just
I
looks
thought I
so.
thought that was really cool.
I love it, man. I just love it. It's another movie where the effects are just top notch.
It is. It really is.
It's so incredible how they were able to do that and how he's able to stick his head into the TV screen and that scene alone. I mean, it's the cover of of the cover of the Blu-ray, so you know it's an iconic shot.
Yeah. I
You
really
know,
want to know how they pulled that off because that was really cool.
I read something one time. I watched a video explaining how they did that, and I just can't remember exactly how they did it. I want to find that video again. But they went through in detail what they did to get that scene shot. And it was really I remember it being pretty remarkable, especially for
Well,
the time.
yeah, because like you said, scene for scene, you see this TV come alive, and then just it's pulsating, and then the screen is actually bulging out further and further, and then he
Yeah.
just sticks his face into it.
Yeah, and if you notice, like on the cabinet of the TV, where it usually has the make of the TV, the model and stuff like that, it says Videodrome on it.
Oh no, I didn't see that.
Yeah, it's pretty neat. That's a nice little touch.
I'm gonna have to go back and look at that now.
It's really cool.
Yeah, even like you said, the special effects is just really cool in this film. Other than just that TV, the handgun, I thought that was really cool. That was a neat touch.
Yeah,
I love the fact that when he pulled the gun out of his stomach, um, I thought he was going on a retaliation at that point, but he wasn't. Not quite yet. Not before he shot up everyone.
yeah. So
But
basically, what they do is they turn him into an assassin. Like they control, they want him to take out his partners at the station, because their whole thing is they're they're doing business in smut, like, and that's not kosher for Convex and what he wants is society to be. So he wants you know Max Wren to take out all these people, like to start with them, and then that's a cool scene too when he goes into the man. And that's another thing I didn't even mention too. The posters on the wall of the TV station, all the horror movie posters,
yeah, I noticed
so
that.
so great, man, so cool.
That was quite a neat touch.
One of my favorite things to do is to go back with certain films and especially films that deal with like a theater or like a television station and stuff like that, and seeing all the different horror movie posters. Like if
Hmm.
I'm seeing a movie where it's actually got that kind of stuff, like I zone in on that stuff right away because
Yeah, I do notice that.
I love those posters, man. I'm like, oh, I want that poster. I want that poster. Like, so they're so cool.
Yeah.
But yeah, even leading up to that scene where he goes in and he's got pretty much the gun is fused with his hand, which is, I mean, this is Cronenberg we're talking about, so the body horror is going to be superb. But the gun is essentially infused in his hand, and he's got like a gun hand. So, which leading up to that point, Convex puts that tape into his. It's almost like an opening. He uses it like the opening, like you're putting a videotape or a VHS into a VHS player,
Yeah.
but he's putting it into the slit on his stomach, which looks like a giant vagina. So basically, when he does that, it plays into Robert Wood. Why did I say that? James Woods' psyche, and it basically gets him to be controlled, like it controls him. So
Hmm.
that's why they were able to get him to kill his partners at the station, and then have him go after Bianca Oblivion. That was his next target.
Yeah. That was definitely cool. He ended up not killing Bianca.
No, he didn't, and she actually ended up helping him to kind of break his like I don't know to break his like trance and what they
Yeah.
wanted him to do. She was able to counteract that and pretty much
And
get him
which
to work against them.
yeah, and which worked out quite well.
Yeah, because at that point he was completely brainwashed. I mean, he was following every order they had him do, like he was doing everything blindly.
Hmm. Yeah, you can even I thought that was a really cool touch because they kept telling him to kill, go there and kill her.
Yeah, and you could hear it like it was the voice in his head.
Yeah, it was like they were chanting it to him.
Yeah,
Yeah, I thought that was a real neat touch.
yeah, it was really cool.
Um, but yeah, and then obviously the end scene, which I thought was really awesome. Um, Kind of sucks for James Wood, James Wood's character, but right there at the end when he goes down into that ship, and just magically there's a fucking TV down there.
Yeah,
So obviously you could tell like a squatter or something was staying down there,
yeah, oh yeah, it's completely
and
terrible. Got like an old bed and like bottles of booze all around and trash, and it was just yeah. Well, it was a condemned like vessel too. It was like a condemned ship, so he
yeah,
wasn't even supposed to. No one's supposed to be on there at all. It was condemned and shut down and stuff like that. But you could tell like homeless people were squatting there.
yeah. And then when the does the TV cut on or does he turn on the TV?
It just cuts on, yeah, and
Yeah,
it's almost like it's his mind, like it's the like I said to that quote, the TV is the retina of the mind's eye, so it kind of like it follows through to him at the end too. That whole that quote in particular. So
yeah,
I thought it was. That's why I always thought that was a prevalent quote in this movie because it even plays into the end of the movie.
yeah. And obviously when he's staring into the TV, he sees himself essentially killing himself. And at
Mm-hmm.
this point, the girl he kind of cares for in the film, she's dead, Nikki.
Yeah.
Because that's explained. Um, I don't. Does convicts did convicts kill her?
Well, Videodrome, they explained it. Videodrome killed. So she she did tell him at toward the beginning of the film that she was going to be on assignment, and they found out that Videodrome was being broadcast in Pittsburgh. I think is what they said. So she told him, "Hey, I'm going to be on assignment, and I'm going to Pittsburgh." And even James Woods making like a little snarky comment about Pittsburgh, and it's just him being like his snarky, humor and stuff like that. And it's just like you just like his character because he says like little quips like that. But he's even said, "Hey, stay out of the sun" or something like that. And she's like, "No, I'm going to Pittsburgh. Isn't that where they broadcast Videodrome?" He's like, "Yeah." And she's like, "Well, I want to try out for it." And she's like, "I was made for that show." And he's like, you want to stay away from that. That's something even Nikki Brand isn't ready for. Something like that, he says to her.
Yeah,
But you find out that she wasn't on assignment through her employers, that she went there on vacation or something to pretty much try out for Videodrome. Now, essentially what they ended up doing was using her to lure him in by killing her and then supplanting her in his consciousness to get him to kind of like, to motivate him almost.
yeah.
But yeah, like you said, Corey, she appears on the screen too, and yeah, leads into what you were talking about.
So yeah, so obviously we're at the end here, and basically he sees himself killing himself, and that's almost like the only way that he could essentially free his mind from this.
Mm-hmm. And then
Uh,
move on. Next phase is what she tells him.
yeah. And what's the quote he says there? Do you remember?
Yep. Long live the new flesh.
Yeah. So he sees himself off himself. He says that before he offs himself, and then he does exactly what he just saw on the TV. He leans forward towards a fire, says "Long lives the new flesh," and then blows himself away. And that's the end of the film.
Yeah, it's a mind fuck, man.
It
It
really
really.
is. Because I was expecting a little bit more. Like I was, you obviously hope that your main character lives. I guess he lives on through Videodrome,
Yeah,
right?
yeah, he lives on. Like she explained to him that was to 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 move on, you have to kill your old self. You have to kill your own body or your old body. and move on to the new flesh, which is why he says, "Long live the new flesh," and ends up chanting that before he ends up shooting himself with his handgun still. um, but yeah, well, up until that point, he was on the run because he basically Bianca kind of deprogrammed him, so he was free from Videodrome's influence, and he was able to take out Barry Convex, who was the main antagonist, the one that was pretty much controlling him and getting him to do everything he wanted him to do. Which, when he shoots him and he starts to like, those effects are fucking incredible.
Yeah.
Like, he starts to basically fall apart, and it's amazing. It kind of reminds me of The Thing in a way, like the effects for The Thing. Just the way his body looks, and he starts to split open, and it's just, I don't even know, man. It's so weird. It's like there's an alien coming out of him or something. The way his body just kind of just erupts and stuff like that. Like, it's crazy looking, dude.
Yeah.
Those are some of my favorite effects in the movie.
Yeah. I actually, I think I thought that I didn't write that down in my notes, but I did think that to myself, like, holy shit, that reminded me of The Thing.
Yeah, it really did.
Yeah, like you said, he falls down to the ground and just starts splitting open.
Yeah,
That's
split
so
open,
cool.
shit starts spewing out of his stomach and his face, and it's just like, oh shit, like this is crazy.
David Cronenberg, body
Uh,
horror.
King of body horror, man. I'm telling you, he delivers when it comes to body horror. I don't. There's no one that does it better. I don't think there's anyone. No, I know there's no one that'll do it quite like him.
No,
He's in a league of his own.
he really is. Yeah, honestly, this film, like this film is, like you said, it's really a mind fuck of a film.
It's
Um,
fucking incredible, though,
but
man.
yeah, it is such a good film.
Now you see why I tell you it sticks with you for a while when you see it for the first time, and it makes you want to go back and watch it again to see what you missed and what other things you can pick up on. Like I said, there's a lot of metaphorical shit going on in this movie.
Yeah. Well, like one of the things that we brought up, and that's what I guess that's one of the things that I love about older films too is, that there was more meaning behind older films. You know,
Yeah,
they had subliminal messages in them and stuff like that. And I think this hits highly on, um, ratings and stuff. Well, not so much ratings, but well, I mean, I guess you would say they talk about ratings in this film, but um, uh, what is it? What am I trying to think of? Like, yeah, I guess like PG-13 rating and stuff like that. So, I guess in a sense, ratings, um, but not so much like the like they talk about the different violence and stuff like that. I thought that was really interesting, and that was very subtle and subliminal in this film.
hmm
You know,
yeah, definitely, man.
but yeah, overall, this was a fun one, and I look forward to revisiting it in the future as well. This is one of those films that honestly I haven't taken advantage of watching, and I need to watch more often than not.
Yeah, it's definitely it's one I go back to a lot. I think I've watched Videodrome in the past like 2 years about 4 or 5 times, man. Like, just going back to it, it's one of those movies. Like, I tell you, it sticks with you, and you go back and watch it. It's one of those movies that has ultimate replay value, to where
Mm,
you can go back and there's always something else you can pick out, always something else that you can wrap your mind around and say, "Oh shit!" Like, I understand what Cronenberg was doing there,
mhm.
because you don't always get everything at like first viewing. Like, it's just too much to take in at one time. It's like it's sensory overload, and it becomes a point where you're like, okay, I have to watch this movie again just to see what I like. My mind wasn't prepared for this. I have to watch it again now that I'm a little bit more prepared for what's going to happen.
Yeah.
So
Well,
it,
like you
it's
said, you pick up more on subtle things as you go along, and I think that's I need to watch this a little bit more to continue to understand where Cronenberg was going because I had a hard time following it at first. The first time I ever watched this, I remember watching it and just being completely like, like, what did I just watch? But
It's
yeah, like you
definitely
said, it's one of those ones that you definitely have to watch over and over again in order to understand it more.
yeah. The sense of surrealism when it comes to this movie is very very just prevalent, and it sticks with you as well. It's nihilistic. It's all those words. It's bleak. The ending's bleak. I know we talked about the ending. It's very bleak. Just because you don't know what comes next. You just don't know what happens after, after he's moved on to the what she calls the next phase. Because that's another thing that was interesting is basically Brian Oblivion was his conduit, his go-to to tell him what was going on in Videodrome and what was happening. And basically
Mhm.
when he like dies off in Videodrome, Nikki becomes his conduit at that point. And
Mhm.
she kind of like navigates him through, what he needs to do to get past Videodrome and move on to the second phase. So I thought that was really neat too, and that's one thing I caught from this watch I didn't pick up before is I love this twist and where he was basically his conduit, and then she became his conduit because of his feelings toward her and how he, really was I falling for her. So I thought that was really effective as well.
Yeah.
But
Yeah, I
yeah,
could there
I'm
that
with
like you said, you could almost get a sense of he was falling for her, and then, when she goes to Philadelphia or whatever, it almost seemed like he almost kind of showed a jealous state in a sense,
mhm.
you know. I think she even didn't she like try and get him to go with her?
I don't remember. She seemed like really, really excited about just leaving and going there to audition for it by herself. So I don't know. At that point,
Well,
you don't know, like, was she exposed to it a little bit more after she watched it with him and just became obsessed with it, and that's why, or was she just obsessed with it because she had that kink?
yeah.
Like, I don't know. It's
I mean,
interesting.
obviously there was definitely she had a side of a side of her before Videodrome, you know.
Exactly. So who was the real Nikki Brand at the end of the day? Like, did Videodrome kind of seduce her, or was she already, she was already there anyway? She just needed that little spark to kind of tip her over the edge and kind of make her commit to that, which ended up being her downfall. Which is, man, there's just so much going on. There's so much to this movie you can think and process, and it's like I said, this is why it's such a strong and fascinating film because it makes you have all these questions. It makes you think. There's still stuff I really like. I think I have it narrowed down, but there's still a you know, little things here and there that I might not fully comprehend.
Yeah.
And I've seen it a ton, so it just goes to show you, man, the power of film. When it's a strong metaphorical film that makes you think, you can watch it over and over and get more and more out of it. I love that that's why I love watching movies for that reason. Like that's just one of many reasons I like watching movies, but that's a really, really strong reason to especially revisit a movie and check it out again if it's got a lot of deep meaning.
Hmm.
That's that's what gets me going, man. That's what I love about cinema.
Oh yeah, definitely, definitely.
Yep.
Well, you got any more that you want to bring up about this film?
I don't think so, man. I think we pretty much narrowed it down. Like talked about what we need to talk about with this one. I mean, you could
Yeah.
probably talk for another 2-3 hours about this movie, but we don't. As a podcast, we don't go that long. So,
No. Well, you ready to land it?
I think so
All right, man. Well, folks, you've been listening to the Midnight Monster Corner podcast, and we hope you enjoyed our two reviews on Scanners and Videodrome. And we appreciate all the followings that we're getting. Tony, did you know, by the way, before we close out, we've almost hit 200 downloads.
that's badass, dude. I love hearing it.
Yeah.
Thank,
So
thank everybody out there. Thank you so much for your continued support. We
def
truly appreciate it.
yeah, we definitely appreciate it. It's awesome seeing numbers climb. I'm excited. I'm checking on them. at least twice a week and just seeing where numbers are, and they're climbing. And we appreciate you guys sticking around and listening to us. We do appreciate it.
We definitely do. We're going to try to get this content out to you guys as much as possible. Kind of keep it on a regular schedule and try to keep it growing more.
Yes, yes. Just for the ones that are listening, so we are continuing on with David Cronenberg's work, and the next episode we are planning on doing is going to be The Fly. So I'm definitely looking forward because that's one of my favorite Cronenberg films. Hands down.
Yep, it's his most universally loved film, I'd say.
Yeah. So with that, you guys can like, share, subscribe, and check us out on YouTube and various other platforms. We are, I think, pretty much anywhere you can find a podcast. And on social media, we are on TikTok. You can join me on my TikTok channel on Midnight Monster 20. That's I just recently started posting more videos there. You can also check us out on our Facebook group where we are very active there, and you can communicate one-on-one with us there. And we just love seeing new faces and love seeing content going out on there. You can also check out Daniel, aka Frosty, on Instagram. You just go there and check out. Oh gosh, what's his what's his Instagram? Do you remember? DPG Frosty.
DPG Frosty.
Yes. So go check him out there, and he's posting stuff throughout the week. And yeah, I think I've pretty much covered it. Tony, you got anything?
Oh, for our listeners on the page, I did get some new titles in, so I will have some codes that I will be posting if you guys are interested. We'll be posting those in the Facebook group, so keep an eye out for that.
Yes, definitely. And yeah, we like Tony said, we try and get out. I'm gonna try and look through some of my films and see if I've got some that haven't expired as well, and get those out to you guys so you guys can watch what we're watching as well.
Exactly.
But yeah, with that, later, guys.
Later.